SCI for this session on MEPC83 outcomes. Let's start with safety first. I would like to call Mr. Naveen Kumar to explain safety features.
Thank you very much, Officer. So very good afternoon everyone and a warm welcome to all present here for today's seminar on the outcomes of MEPC83. But before we begin the technical sessions, I would like to draw your attention to a short safety briefing to ensure everyone is aware of the necessary safety protocols. As of today, there is no fire drill plan. If the fire alarm sounds, please treat it as an emergency and exit the premises safely. In case of such emergency, follow the nearest exit sign to leave. The assembly area is located near the main gate and is clearly marked to easy identification. So these are the assembly points, which is just been near to the main gate, and it is been from 1 to 6 on the very first floor and near the main entrance. So this building is non-smoking building, and smoking is permitted only outside the IS building at the designated smoking areas only. So this is a fire evacuation. Please keep your mobile phones on the silent mode to avoid any disruption during the program. Regarding the washrooms, which has just been located outside this auditorium, and that's all being for the safety briefing. Thank you for the attention. Now to formally begin with the proceedings, I would like to invite Mr. Shobit Kapoor to take the program forward and guide us through this insightful session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Navneet, for detailed safety briefing. I would request Mr. Mehra and Mr. Rajiv Nair to present bouquet to CS sir and Mr. Vikrant Rai. CS sir, Mr. Nair, Vikrant sir for lamp lighting ceremony. I would also like to request Mr. Mehra.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
It's my pleasure on behalf of the Institute of Marine Engineers. Actually, it's a Mumbai branch, so I'm just taking a bit of away from protocol on behalf of the full institute and of course Mumbai branch and its chapters. I welcome you to this technical session. I welcome Chief Surveyor Mr. Ajit Sukumaran, Mr. Vikrant Rai, Principal Officer, MMB Calcutta, officials of DG Shipping, members of the shadow committee of MEPC committee, members of the institute, other marine stalwarts sitting in the audience, I welcome you all. And I hope your learning experience over the next 2-3 hours as the team, including at London, but a lot of them also behind in a shadow committee on all aspects of MEPC to share their thoughts with you on what all has come out of MEPC 83. And we all hopefully will be going back with much more knowledge and possibly some answers to some questions which have been coming to us. And of course, I am thankful to Mumbai branch for arranging this. Incidentally, it's also a pleasure as you may be aware that the institute expanded its objects earlier last year to include member welfare, and in that direction we had one of the first key events yesterday at Mumbai Port Campus, again done by Mumbai branch. So Mumbai branch, I think you're doing a good job. And not only technically take things forward, but also take members welfare also forward. And it's not only Mumbai. Another major event we will be restarting after a gap in Cochin next year beginning with Kumar Sim. Now I'm not going to stand between you, and I'm sure you're waiting to hear the Chief Surveyor give his views. So over to you, Shobit. Thank you very much.
Now I'd like to invite Chief Surveyor sir for give us some word of encouragement.
Respected Sri Rajiv Nair, Principal Officer and the Leader of Delegation, distinguished delegates of the MEPC, others sitting all over the day, but and my colleagues from the office. Yeah, my colleagues from industry, the young cadets sitting on the back side, a warm good afternoon to you all. By congratulating Institute of Marine Engineers for doing this event year after year, I think makes MEPC debuting by Sanjay Chakrabarti and team. So first let me congratulate the team IMEI for organizing this. Next, my congratulations for on behalf of all of you to our armed forces for the Operation Sindoor, and also pay homage to the innocent lives lost in the combat. I believe we should also thank our political leadership for giving them a clear mandate but a free hand. Taking the lead from that, I must say that same kind of approach was done for the MEPC delegation when they went to the IMO, this time for one of the most critical sessions in the history of International Maritime Organization. I believe they were also given a very clear mandate and a free hand to take decisions on the floor. And I must say that they have done a great job. And if I quote our Secretary himself, it was a brilliant show by our MEPC team. And I must say that it was not only regarding the carbon pricing or the GSG framework, but also the other sessions, including the ballast water, other areas which we have discussed in the MEPC. Because a few days back, one representative from Intertanko had come and met me, specifically to thank India's role in MEPC. And if I quote him, he was telling very clearly that perhaps today India is one of the very few countries who talk on the operational and technical challenges of these kind of regulatory waves which are coming day by day. And for that, I must thank the entire team led by Sri Vikrant Rai and the seniors led by other seniors like Mr. Bose, Mr. Mudid and all. A big round of applause for them. Now coming to the discussions regarding the MEPC, definitely this was one of the landmark sessions, particularly because when it is moving towards a new phase, the economic manipulation or economic control of the regulatory framework. Whether it is good or bad, only time can tell, but definitely it is definitely a crossroad for the international regulatory framework. So I do not like to go into the details of the technical matters associated with that, because our esteemed delegates are there to report from the ground zero, which exactly happened on the force of the plenary and the working groups. But definitely it is my responsibility to clarify certain policy positions or the take from the government on these aspects, particularly after seeing so many media reports, social media reports, and also in our shipping circle groups. I would like to classify it into three categories. Number one, the political aspect. Number two, the financial aspect. Number three, the strategic aspect. If you talk about the political aspect of the decision, particularly I'm talking about the carbon pricing which has been decided in this session. The three, the myths or the allegations or charge, whatever is there projected was, number one, India has moved away from its conventional position or the conventional constituency of developing countries and moved towards the developed country bloc. Number two, we have moved away from our age-old position, national position on the principles of climate change, that is CBDR-RC, or the common but differentiated responsibilities. The third most important one was that the headlines of many of the media, the lead media including, that India has supported the carbon levy at the IMO, India has endorsed the carbon tax in IMO, and so on. So let me start from the last point itself, the carbon tax or carbon levy. Maybe technical, some kind of explanation can be given, but I must say that it is absolutely incorrect. So what it means is that there is a huge difference between the current proposal which is adopted now and the conventional levy or taxation which was being projected earlier. So for example, the two of the major proposals which was rejected outright were one from the EU bloc for the levy of up to 300 and the other means ICS and all. The other one also is similar to that. EU proposal for the mixture of this flexibility plus taxation, the levy. So all these levy proposals were outright rejected. At no point of time India has endorsed or supported any kind of levy proposal, because we understand more than the technical matter of opinion, there are some issues, policy decision connected with many of the member states. Because taxation or levy in effect become a taxation forum. It is a territorial jurisdiction or sovereign right of a country which cannot be endorsed through an international forum. So in principle, it cannot be accepted. That is why we were objecting to that. So the first point that India endorsed the taxation or the levy is absolutely incorrect. Number two, even I think today's paper also was mentioning about India support of the levy. Number two, we moved from the conventional constituency of developing country bloc or the so-called developing or underdeveloped countries, whatever definition which you call. So to developed countries, it's also again incorrect or partly true. To some extent, yes, this alignment was also, there are several developed countries were aligned with that, perhaps not the most developed country in the USA, but definitely the developing countries also were in favor of this proposal. That is established through the voting pattern itself. Of the 104 countries participated in the voting, our delegates will be able to say the exact mode of the event there. But of the 104 countries voted, 63 voted in favor of the current proposal which is adopted now, which is a GFI regime, which is not a levy, but it is a progressive, performance-based program. So 63 countries, including the developed country bloc, have supported this, which also include India, China, and Brazil, the major developing economies itself. That is one side. But who opposed it? 16 countries opposed it, led by Saudi Arabia, Russia, Venezuela, and so on. If you dissect a little more microscopically, you can see all these were from the oil-producing countries. Because they were also opposing to that, primarily because they do not want any kind of green transition to take place, which is undermining their own interest itself. It is as good as cutting the branch on which they are sitting, because their very survival itself is on the fossil fuel, and any proposal which is moving away from the fossil fuel regime will be definitely opposed by them. But on the other hand, our perspectives on our circumstances are entirely different. We are an oil importing country, and every opportunity to move out of that fossil fuel legacy, we should support and endorse. That is what exactly happened there itself. And the third group was around 22 countries, which was so-called small island developing states or SIDS, and the least developed countries. What was their real opposition? They are not opposed to any kind of economic measure. In fact, they were asking more than that. They were asking for $300 plus levy. They want a revenue generation. This has to be changed in the revenue generation proposal, and that revenue must be unconditionally distributed these countries for their so-called climate mitigation methods or climate adaptation methods. That means, in effect, it is for the out-of-sector utilization, which was strongly opposed by our delegation and all, because we said the money which is collected from the shipping must be utilized back into the shipping. That was the primary objection for the LDC to keep abstaining. Now, of these three groups, where we can ally, I believe we can ally only with the first group. That is exactly what happened. It is not that moving from developing country or developed country bloc. Third one is regarding the CBDRRC. CBDRRC, yes, CBDRRC is an age-old proposal which is going on, coming from the UNFCCC. But the effectiveness of the CBDRRC itself is challengeable today. But without going through that part itself, we must say that at no point of time we have abandoned the principle of the CBDRRC. In fact, our delegation has been projecting it for the last decade or over, under which these proposals were under discussion. And the 2023 revised IMO strategy clearly endorses and acknowledges the position of the CBDRRC. Now, the question is how it can be implemented. It's a myth that we can just implement on the flag-based discriminatory regime by developing country flag to be paid less, or the more responsibility must be laying on the developed country bloc. It is again a myth in shipping context, where a ship registered in a developing country may be owned by a highly developed country and may be chartered by some other developed country operating, taking cargo from China to Europe or whatever it could be, where we can fix the responsibility. If you are fixing the responsibility, the common but differentiated responsibility, where can we differentiate this responsibility? If you differentiate the responsibility based on the flag, the maximum beneficiaries should be the least developing countries and the island nations. So the Panama, Liberia, and all, they happens to be the largest on the revenue distribution pattern. Once the revenue is there, how it should be distributed? Our position was this amount, this revenue has to be distributed for the capacity building, the infrastructure development, and other associated development in developing country blocks. This has been accepted in this principle, and that is why at no point of time the CBDRRC has been abandoned, but it has been incorporated in the most feasible way in the current proposal. So these are the political aspects. Now coming to the economic aspect of that, we always say that it is going to have a huge impact. It is going to change the trade pattern. It is going to have a huge freight rate increase. If the $100, $70, $80, if it is put on the per ton of fuel, it is going to be huge liability. Ladies and gentlemen, any regulatory framework coming from the IMO, whether it is technical or otherwise, has got some kind of liability. So ultimately, it is a social cost to be paid by the society. It is a fact. But we should not make assumptions based on some other assumptions. It has to be based on facts and figures. I do not go into the micro level of that, which I believe the delegates will be able to clearly say. But if you're seeing from the macro level introspection, you can see the maximum bunker price increase could be around 13.9%. With the levy, which is going to be, this kind of, not levy, this kind of proposal, it could be somewhere around additional cost of around $70 to $80 to start with for per ton of fuel. So it can come down to even 25 to 26 also based on your compliance range. But if you are seeing that the increase in bunker cost could be 13.9%. Looks like a bigger figure. But just see the average fluctuation of the fuel, so bunker fuel. In the last 5 to 6 years, if you are seeing, it is 42% average fluctuation. Now, what is going to be the freight impact? Freight impact is considered to be around 5.56%. This, because of this bunker fuel increase, what is going to be the freight rate increase around 5.56%? What is a freight rate fluctuation? It was 62% in the last 5 years if you are seeing. So now what is the impact on the landing price? Landing price of the steel, for example, is considered to be around 1.2 or 1.8% because of this liability. But what is the fluctuation of the steel price itself? It has to be 60 to 70% in the last 5 years. If you are seeing the oil import cost, its additional could be maybe around 1%, less than 1%. But what is the fluctuation of the crude oil price? It was in 2020 when COVID was going, it was only $20. In 22, just 2 years back, in 22, when the Ukraine war started, it shot up to 120, 6 times, 600%. What is the average change? It is more than 60%. In effect, this kind of predictable increase is very much absorbable by the industry, and it is a social cost to be paid by the society for a better future, better environment. Now, coming to the fleet impact, many people used to say that we have got old tonnage, it will be hugely affected by this kind of proposal. Just see the facts before us. We had 1,556 ships under our registry. Out of that, only 212 are only going to be affected by this. In the range. Why? This is applicable only for ships which are making international voyages, number one. Number two, it is only applicable to ships above 5,000 GT. In other ways, almost 86% of our ships are straight away exempted coastal fleet. Now coming to this 212 ships, out of that only 135 ships are in international operations. That means less than 9% of our ships are going to be affected by this measure. So please don't get carried away by just assumptions and presumptions based on some other assumptions. Now coming to the last point of that is strategical point. Why did we impose such a scenario? Whatever you say, any kind of increase, why should we accept? The fact is that it has to be a strategical decision. The shipping does not mean only the ship owners or seafarers. I believe the shipping is a national industry which serves the entire nation. So when we are talking about that, we should see how it is beneficial to the country as a whole, not as a shipping entity alone. Just see the case of how the transition is going to help us. Just first of all, you just see that we are an oil importing country. Around $160 billion annually we spend only on fossil fuel import. If we can transit at least 1% of this, so what would be the benefit to our country going to come? Just see the case of shipping industry. It is estimated that, I'm not talking about direct, but all together around 25 million tons of fuel are consumed, maybe if you're considering our Indian trade, which costs around $15 billion. By this transaction itself, if you can able to change the 5% which is anticipated for the 2030, it would be somewhere around 1 billion. So just see, on the other hand, what is going to be the total outgo? It is less than 1 billion, it's around 80 to 90 million. That's what is estimated for our fleet for the month of year. So this kind of calculations which has to be placed before us before we make some assumptions on that. Number two, if you're seeing the potential to develop the country as a green hub. See, when the IMO Secretary General was here, 7 of our lead CEOs of green energy firms had met him. I was part of that meeting, and in which they were confidently and categorically saying that they will be able to make available the green hydrogen at $1.5 per kg by 2030 plus. Forget about the $1.5. At least if they are able to make it at $2 per kg. So we will be able to make the ammonia at the rate of around $750 to $800. Plus, because of this measure, initial stage itself, there is a 520 revenue, means additional surplus unit which is going to come to ammonia fuel, which may come to around $256 or $300 by 2035. So what would be how if you are seeing that much match? So where is the potential lying for us? We have to see how the transition is going to happen, how it is going to help the entire country, and above all, one of the strange features for India is that India is the largest producer of skilled manpower for ammonia handling. So we have got a huge demographic advantage over that. Can we neglect that scenarios? We need to encourage our shipbuilding. We need to encourage even our ship recycling sectors. So the economy is a decision factor behind any kind of the decision, and this has to be the prime motive or prime understanding of this kind of measure which is coming out. That should be helpful for India and emerging economy like India. Finally, my last point is that what I said, the coastal ships are exempted. Wonderful. We are always, it is not only in this, every regulation when it comes, we are only saying that coastal ship has to be supported. Just see the fundamental flows which we are making. With due respect to the contributions of the coastal ship regime, let me tell you what is the exemption which is governing MARPOL means and how it is different from SOLAS exemptions. SOLAS exemption, maybe if you are going to see, it has to have a different kind of safety regime. So that is why the coastal, it is very understandable. If you are coming to the coastal, it has to be diluted. But what about environment regulations? The MARPOL exemption given is not for lowering the standard, but for making higher standard while in our coast, so that our waters are protected, our environment is protected. That is what US does, that is what EU does, that is what Singapore does, that is what America does. Only for countries like India, we are happy by keeping the environment regulations from our context, but we are very religious that our foreign going ships should be complying with that. Classic example is Ballast Water Convention. We say that Ballast Water Convention should not be ratified, we will not implement on our ships. But we ensure that our ships, when we are going America, UK or US, it is completely meeting the requirement. Their waters are kept clean. But please come to our waters, keep polluting us. This is what the meaning of the MARPOL exceptions. With this, I hope the better sense provide with the industry, and it is not that we keep away the regulations. The regulations always throw us opportunities. It is how we get into these regulations making and how it gets tuned to our requirements. I believe that is precisely our delegation did this time, for at least for this GFI regime. And thank you very much for all these efforts from the delegation. Thank you so much.
At least a lot of things were eye-opening for me. We never looked at it from the point of view of macroscopic impacts. Instead of looking at our own place and our own limited understanding. 2025 this year, there have been some changes in EEDI. EEXI is to large extent implemented. CIE requirements, I understand ship owners are having a lot of challenges. One of the challenges being Z factors. So phase 1 in MEPC has taken care of that. Phase 2 will start in 2028. The candidate greenhouse gas reduction measures, there are two parts to it regarding fuel certification as well as IMO net zero framework. We are going to discuss in detail by the team which represented nations. I think most of you are aware of it by now. The greenhouse gas fuel intensity, combination of two factors. One is EIJ, which is greenhouse gas intensity. The details as of now is coming from MEPC 39181. Basically, sustainable fuel certification scheme is supported by total energy used on board the ship. So that's what GFI attained is. I'm not going to detail for this. The other part is the target GFI. Now the target GFI R is 1 minus Z upon 100 into GFI of 2008, which is considered as 93.3 grams CO2 equivalent per megajoule of energy. So essentially this ZT value will keep on reducing. One is base target which will be considered, other is direct compliance target. So base target will start from 4% in 2020. Initially it will increase by 2% and then followed by from 2030 it will start increasing by 4.4%. Now this graph generally indicates of GFI and attained annual GFI multiplied by total energy used. Now the dotted line here shows the attained GFI and green line shows base, light green line shows the base target and the dark line, the dark baseline indicates the base target and the light indicates the direct compliance target. So whatever you, or if there is a deficit, if it is a surplus, that can be used to take care of the tier 2 deficits, and if it is a surplus, then it will take care of, and if it is deficit, then additional funds have to be provided to take care of deficit. So the compliance balance I said is the difference between direct compliance target and per tons of CO2 equivalent for direct compliance and $380 per CO2 equivalent for the remedial units. Of net zero framework has also been clearly defined, which we'll be discussing further. At this stage, I would like to call Shri Vikrant Rai, Principal Officer, who was leading our delegation as a keynote speaker.
Respected CS sir, my colleagues from MEPC83 committee, my colleagues from Directorate General of Shipping and DG NMD, the industry, the cadets and everybody. I thank all of you for giving me a chance to speak here. I am not here to speak about the regulatory framework which my colleagues will be speaking. But some key aspect I would like to bring it forward in front of the larger audience. Instructions what to do at MEPC in case we go for voting. So we were aware. And secondly, I am also thankful to our High Commission over there who attended everywhere. The First Secretary attended the meeting everywhere, every day. And he was supporting us during the course of the events unfolding over there when the voting came up. Lastly, even on the last day when there was a voting, let me tell you, the voting took us in minutes. By the time we could convey to High Commission and to CS sir, though it was already announced that voting will be there. So I'm thankful and grateful to my seniors in Directorate General of Shipping, respected CS sir, DG sir, others in Secretary, Ministry of Shipping, who have given us clear mandate what to do and clarity on our role over there at MEPC 83. That the first thing. The second thing, this MEPC 83 IMO net zero framework outcome is not a one-day outcome. I have people in my committee, our committee MEPs who are representing India. They have worked for years. You may be aware that there was a steering committee set up. There was 5 to 6 meetings of the steering committee where was a qualitative assessment on the basis of the available reports and the review of the literature by WMU. Then there was the impact on fleet by DNV and impact on states based on the impact on fleet by UNTAD. Our delegation led by Mr. Bose, Mr. Rajiv Nigan, Mr. Mudit Mehrotra, Mr. Kashyap, who attended each and every meeting. I would have missed one or two. I am ever grateful to them because their attendance brought India's commitment towards net zero framework, regular attendance. I am grateful to them for that. I also give my thanks to my colleagues in Directorate General of Shipping, Mr. Senthil Kumar, the Principal Officer MD, Chennai, Mr. Satish Kamath, who have, Mr. Gopi Krishna, who have been in forefront in various aspects of this MEPC 83 and even otherwise. Then we have our young surveyor, Mahesh, who has joined 1 year back. He has put a lot of effort in underwater noise and marine plastic litter. I am thankful to him also for all the effort for putting it. I am thankful to Mr. Mahesh Subramanian. Intertanko is very happy with Mahesh work. They are speaking about Mahesh and Rajiv sir work. Rajiv sir is there everywhere. They are all talking about Mahesh work which has been done at MEPC. This thing. Then Mr. Garish, he's in forefront in the non-CO2 emissions from engines, which we'll be measuring, which ROs will be measuring as you will become aware of this net zero framework going forward. I was also part of the committee. Mr. Girish has pushed me to study and give answers to whatever questions posed us. I am grateful to you for that. Mahesh, I have already named. And Mudit sir, I think is very thorough what has happened from MEPC before MEPC 83, 82 now MEPC 83, knowing everything about what has happened in each and every committee. These are the powerful source of backups which we had when we went for the MEPC 83, and all credit goes to them. I like to state here, CS sir has already told you about CBDRRC. Now CBDRRC, when we went into MEPC 80 and beyond, there was a talk about the levy. The whole philosophy of India has changed at that time, that we have IPC fund convention. We are paying hundreds and thousands of dollars, but we are getting nothing. We don't have even Indians sitting over there in the board till recently when some Indians were nominated. So maybe what that time, either we were not listened very well or we have not negotiated very well. So we changed this concept of CBDRRC. We said that if revenues is generated, it should come to the developing worlds. And that is what has happened. Now the next stage, which I request going forward my colleagues to push for, is a position for India in the governing board of Net Zero Fund to be created at IMO, so that India can get some part of the fund and be in a decision-making role at there. The second part, before we went for MEPC 83, as there was a Green Shipping Conclave Part 2, lot of fuel manufacturers came to know. Then there was an entry of Adani and Ambani suddenly, the fuel manufacturers who are pushing for green fuels, who are pushing us that the definition of the green fuel. So definition of the green fuel is also very important. And I will not go into the detail of everything, but let me explain to you one thing very clearly. There is a difference between reward and surplus unit. The green fuels will get rewards, not generate surplus units. Why I am telling you this thing? If you generate surplus units, IMO is not going to buy it. So if there are no taker for the surplus unit in the market, your cost will not be bridged. But if you are given rewards, then IMO is going to pay for it and it will bridge the cost differential between the green fuel and the fossil fuel. And that is the major difference between the rewards and the surplus unit. And definition of India in green fuel is 2 kg per kg of hydrogen, which comes to about 16.6 GFI. It is kept at 19. We also went there. We also pushed for lower and lower GFI value for green fuels to be paid rewards, because our manufacturers are backing us and telling us we can manufacture at the rate of 14 green hydrogen, and so that they can sell. They become a seller to the world shipping. And the last thing I will like to say, that India has got huge opportunity. We have hydrogen mission, 5 million metric tons by 2030. Let me tell you, you require 177 kg of hydrogen only to manufacture 1 ton of ammonia. So you can imagine how much from this 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen you will be able to manufacture methanol and ammonia. That's all. I would like to rest here, give thanks to my senior CS sir, my colleagues from MEPC83 Directorate, who have given us strength to work through that day at MEPC83, and let them explain, because they have done the real work, what is actually IMO Net Zero framework. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, and obviously the team was ably led by you, so a lot of credit also goes to you. Now, I would like to call delegates for session number 1. Shri Rajiv Nayyar sir, Shri Mudit Mehrotra, Shri N. Giri. So I don't think all these stalwarts need any introduction, but I'm just playing the slides for that purpose. Shri Satish Kamath sir for presentation.
Colleagues for the MEPC 83, all the seniors and colleagues from the industry who are attending today, and also the cadets. Let us start the background story till now, when the Annex 6 came into force. This is broadly, this was shown by Mr. Shobit Kapoor also earlier. So this is broadly the timeline, and you can see there are a lot of places where studies were done, and the implementation of EEDI it started in 2011, and then the journey has started to get a hold of the data. For anything to regulate, you need the data. The data and work on the path forward. So that was precisely done by IMO, and you can see this is one of the pictures taken at the Don't Sink Paris. You have to have, so at MEPC 72, when the initial greenhouse gas strategy was adopted, that time all these things started, and then we came up with this strategy, which was intended to be revised at MEPC 80 in 2023. It got revised, and at that time these were the GHG ship reduction, means emission reduction solutions. So by having your propellers, optimized navigation, alternative marine fuels, and the premium hull coatings, these were the strategies. But you know, these strategies, technical strategies, they can reduce the emissions, but only there are a lot of limitations. So then IMO decided that after having thoughts about the emission reductions, they decided that we will go for the IMO DC. At this point of time in December 2019, the end of the first reporting period was there, and then you come to know that how many ships are complying, the data came in. So we were able to now have a base where we will, then comes the MEPC 80, where at 2030, 20% GHG emissions reductions, by 2040, 70% GHG emission reductions, and 2050 we will achieve net zero. It was very ambitious, considering that earlier in the earlier strategies it was mentioned that we will try to go net zero in 2030, 80% in 2040, and same net zero. The baseline is kept 2008, which was not altered. You can see now I will just talk about the internal negotiations which happened. Vikrant Rai sir has already talked about these things. CS sir also has touched upon these areas where there was a lot of deliberations. So I'll just give you an overall view of whatever. It consists of a lot of experts and stakeholders from INSA, ICSA, FOSMA, MASA, researchers, experts from IITs, IMEIs, and then policymakers and technical experts, and also interministerial. Vikrant Rai have talked about this comprehensive assessment and other issues. The main issues at MEPC 83 was this net zero framework, where we needed some guidance or some inputs from other research organizations. So the inputs were taken from TERI, IIM Bangalore, and there everybody, they put their heads to the India's trade and economic development and how it would affect the freight costs and other related issues. So it was decided that we will go for this net zero framework. We will basically, when you go with a mindset in terms of in other fields like port corridors. So these are the outcomes of having stuck to this policy, which is a flexible policy mechanism to adopt the low GHG fuels and to improve the GHG emissions, improve upon the energy efficiency of the ships. One is a flat levy, uniform levy, but here also in the uniform levy there were two proposals. One was the EU proposal where they said about 100 US, and there was another SIDS proposal where they said that the levy would be around 150. These proposals would put a higher cost on the freight, and it was estimated to be around, for the EU proposal it was 18 to 22%, and for the SIDS proposal it was around 20 to 25%. And the SIDS proposal, basically, as sir said, it was for out of the sector climate mitigation purposes also it was going to be used. And so this GFI two-tier mechanism which was developed, it was which we supported. It was after I really commend all these three people who were sitting there in that group, and even in around 12:30, I believe, I don't know whether it was night 12:30, and the last final thing was not decided, and this top left, we went into another room where there were negotiations going on, and only there had to be some deliberations on a few words. Also, they were not leaving, so it was tough negotiations at that time. So this is what is the outcome now. You get these two base from 2028. Base will be 4%, 17%, as it is written there in the table, and is the base compliance. So above the base compliance, there will be ships which will compliance targets. They will have to pay at the higher rate, because they will be paying for the tier 1 and plus tier 2, and then there are ships which will be between the base and the direct compliance. They will be paying at the rate of $100 directly to the IMO fund, GFI fund, with net zero fund which will be created. Then the lower green line shows the GFI targets, that which Mr. Vikrant Rai and also Mr. Shobhit Kapoor mentioned at 19, and then it will be reduced after 2035 to 14. So what is the impact of this model? This two-tier model which we have here, what is the impact? We have 1,547 ships. Out of that, 135 ships are on regular international trade, and they are above 500 GT. So the 500 GT is the main criteria. So out of 212 ships, there are 135 ships. Out of these 135 ships, the 85 ships may fall within tier 1 and tier 2, and 52 ships will have higher efficiency ratings. This is for our fleet which we have come out, and these ships might be earning the surplus. Then the advantages of this model is a flexible structure vessels have to pay on actual emissions. If we go for a levy, then you have to pay on all the ships have to pay. Here, this framework avoids punitive exclusions, limits our exposure of our Indian fleet, and provides a just transition pathway, more time and scope for fleet modernization for our companies. Then the opportunities of this framework are not only limited to the shipping sector, but also the port sector, where they can develop into green corridors, green bunkering ports. Then upskilling of seafarers is already, as CS sir said, that we have a big base of ammonia, people who have sailed in ammonia, and so we are able to export this kind of fuels to the world, and also ZNZ fuels. Then our fossil fuel imprint will be low. That is a potential advantage for India. And clean fuel technologies can come in, and also green fuel and bunkering infrastructure initiatives can be startups can be started in India. Thank you.
I forgotten to say one thing. Sometimes you like somebody, then forget to take his name. So I think I have left the name of Mr. Venkat, who has been a designer of sort. He has given such beautiful papers which have been appreciated and talked about. Mr. Rayat, and nonetheless Mr. Kabi from IRS, who have also done a huge effort in bringing this, whatever we have done, later at MEPC committee. Thank you very much.
The session 1 members to
if you have an efficiency improvement on a ship, you basically are spending less fuel, and that is going to lead to a little amount of saving on pricing you have to pay. That's one way to look at it. Secondly, all of us know it, the way forward is going to be on alternative fuels. Which one? I think it's not right for any one of us to debate, or if I knew that, then I will be a multimillionaire today. The other part is that you, the fleet, at a certain stage on your own analysis and based on your future plans, and obviously grab the opportunity of alternative fuels whenever they present themselves in the market. And further fix up till in the interim, as all of us know, biofuel is the fuel which is the interim fuel. So fix up your supply chain and fix up contracts for biofuel supply as early as possible.
this question is partly answered by CS sir, but since you are representing the, actually I am talking about international ships which are going on international trade.
Right now is still donning the hat of MEPC member, so I am still the Indian delegation. Everybody, all ship owners will pay the same. It's not that India is going to be penalized a little more. But if the supply chains are there and if you have availability of fuel, obviously maybe at some stage India would be in a better position than any other country if we have the supply chains fixed up. So also gives us an opportunity to move into that direction at some stage.
Thank you, sir. Available for Indian owners for early implementation, or is there any benefit they can get?
Specifically Indian owners, alternative fuels technology is what I was explained about rewards is the scope. Besides, if you look at it specifically, what was discussed about, we have not really given away the principle of CBD-RRC, but in the terms of how the revenues will get distributed, the money would flow to R&D, would flow to projects which are towards transitioning, whether they even be port-based infrastructure in ports for supply of alternate fuels. So definitely India can position itself well into receiving from those funds which get accumulated under the scheme, once the scheme goes through.
So next question is that question mark, and I'm not going to ask you the question that how much ammonia would be available or hydrogen, but my question would be that obviously the distribution may not be uniform in the world, and I am talking from the point of view of ship owners that in certain areas where alternate fuel or whatever the technology ship owner is using is not available, is there any correction factor thought about it, like FOMAR or any other thing which was discussed in the IMO?
FONAR concept, the whole concept of this has been built up on the thing that why you need this revenue generation. The basic concept why the revenue generation was required was to give a signal to the fuel manufacturing industry to have the fuels in place. So if this becomes successful, you should have the fuels available. So today that is the assumption which it goes on. There's always an experience building phase if there is some issues which specifically come out, because yes, you would invest more when you order a ship which has got a dual fuel technology, but you don't get the fuel. But that one would come with the experience building phase at a later. But as of today, no, FONAR as a concept is not in the regulations.
Kamal sir, two-tier GFI proposal offer better deal for India.
So this two-tier thing, it is like not punishing on anyone. If you are also above your base compliance, then you can trade those remedial units and then the ship can ply. Also, it gives India a chance for developing green fuel infrastructure and other things, you know. And also, if we get into the governance funds, we will get we can get a lot of for capacity building, seafarer upskilling, and other things which maybe indirectly we can get through the technical cooperation committee, as they are doing some projects, so we might be included in that. So this is definitely a pathway, and also this model delays it works on our, gives us some time, means in a slow fashion, it is not harming on the Indian industry, what I see it as. Thank you.
And all started with SEAM Fun, SEAM 2 IMO DCS, SEAM 3 CII, and now some other SEAM will come. So with all this going on, is there any synergy being explored in various regulations, or do you foresee that too much homework is given to shipping companies and ship staff?
There is a certain sense of synergy between all the things. The requirements are not taxing per se. The requirement for this particular section is only going to be addition of the data which is going to be part of the sustainability certification. That has to be added. The regulations will make it much more clearer on how further it will go. But definitely the work on the ship or the feeding in entity is taken care at all stages, as I can assure you.
Okay, Girish sir, for implementation of GFI requirement, also you can tell us something more about the fuel certification. Where are we with that?
Of course, now we have the regulations in place, but these are the basic regulations, but we need a lot of guidelines to really implement the regulations. Firstly, we know about the LCA guidelines which came some time back. That is the life cycle assessment guidelines. This guideline is far from complete, I would say, because it doesn't give much data on the default values of various pathways of various fuels. If we don't know the default values of GHG emissions of the fuels, we can calculate the GFI. So for that purpose, you need default values urgently. And that work is currently underway by a JSAM working group at IMO. So that work has to be completed. That's the first thing. Secondly, we also need a certification, as we said. We need a sustainability certification as well as the well-to-wake value, well-to-tank value certification. So for that certification, IMO has to decide which are the certification schemes which can be recognized and give a list of such recognized schemes. For that, IMO also has to make a guideline, and on that basis, they should accept they should make the list of the certification schemes, and then the fuel can be certified on that basis. That is another work to be completed. And thirdly, of course, we talked about the SEAM. The SEAM has to be updated, and for that we need guidelines for the next SEAM part 4. What is going to come now? For that we need guidelines so that we can update the SEAM. So all these three guidelines are to be made urgently. Then of course we talked about various things in the GFI. We have seen earlier in the presentations about what is GFI, how to calculate GFI, we need guidelines, how to report GFI, we need guidelines, and how to verify the GFI by administrations or ROs, that there also we need guidelines. Like that, for each step in the process, guidelines are to be prepared. So IMO is working on that, identified what are the guidelines required, and that work should be completed before the due date of implementation. That is at least before 1st of Jan 2028, or even before that, so that we can be prepared with the especially SEAM guideline will be required much before, because we have to submit to the administration or RO to get it approved at least by the end of 2027, so that we can start measuring from 2028. So all these have to be prepared, and all this work has to be completed, and we hope that all these subcommittees and the working groups of IMO will complete this work before the regulations come into force. And secondly, about you asked about certification. Certification, okay, partly I touched up on that, because there is a sustainability certification is also part of the requirement. In addition to the GHG well to wake value or well to tank value, what is given in the guidelines, as well as maybe it can be certified separate along with the bunker delivery note. So for getting this sustainability certificate, it covers the entire gamut of sustainability itself. Before we start, when we start measuring for that 1 year period, by the end of the year, we should have all the certificates ready with us, so that it can be submitted to the administration or RO for verification. Thank you.
While making our plans or while preparing for our...
Yeah, okay, shipyards are not GFI certification, GFI value, but shipyards will have to be ready with designs and new vessels which can meet this alternative fuel. Because you have to use alternative fuels. That's the most important part is that you have to have ships which are which can run on alternative fuels. For that, you need ships to be built, and all the safety requirements or various fuel toxicity problems are there. Safety issues are there with these new kind of fuels. What is being talked about? We are even talking about nuclear fuels, that's also on the cards. So all that requires a lot of regulations to be made, requirements to be made, very detailed requirements will have to be made, and rules will have to be prepared. To some extent, IMO is also working on that that the class societies are using. So all these things will have to be implemented by the shipyards. So shipyards have to keep in mind this and then start preparing designs which will meet the alternative fuel pathway. Because as we go along, we are reducing the GHG value year by year. So that you have to have those designs in place quite in advance. Then only we will be able to compete with the world shipbuilding.
Any collaboration with training institutes, because a lot of new things are coming. Any one of you can answer this. Is there any effort put on training aspects as well?
Yes, it is. It has moved into HTW, MSc as well, and I think there are IMO programs which are specifically being done and under the TCC cooperation. Recently, there was one program done in Shanghai where 2 representatives from India has gone. And I think now there's one in Singapore very shortly where 2 representatives will again be going for training on this. So this definitely, and I think TCC point of view.
It is a train the trainer concept. Actually, the TCC has modified itself upon some thematic. One of them is the environment and all this what is happening around the MEPC 83. So it is decided that from the thematic perspective and considering the IMSA's audit findings, there will be targeted approach of the TC for giving their TC cooperation, the technical cooperation in various regions. So the Asia region has just now proposed for one train the trainer in alternative fuels in Singapore or something. So such things keep on coming in various, and we will also hold some regional and capacity building workshops we have held in the past for some other issues, and for these issues also we will be establishing such capacity building programs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And a lot of things which is there to discuss. And in ideal world, we should have had one full day session on greenhouse gas. Lot of things to explain, but the idea of this was to understand what happened in IMO, rather than explaining each and every detail. For that, it would require a lot more time. Probably question answers. If there's any urgent question answers from anybody in audience for the panelists.
See, today we have got the EEDI, EXI, CAA, so many things connected from you. Even an expert will be able to know which all things are currently applicable, which is not there, but is not relevant. But as you said, you are the point which he was raising is absolutely right. I think there is some kind of integration which is required in that, particularly CAA and how it can be related with this reward scheme or whatever is there. So I think the delegation must focus on that, because it is that, see, if we just receiving what is coming from them and following it, that culture is gone. Now we should try to get into there and correct it. So if there is any possibility, just for the audience also, if some ideas are there, how to have this integrated approach on that. So I think that is a good way forward which you can discuss and decide.
Can I just, as part of MEPC83, we had a discussion on this. There was a concept wherein the CII would be merged with the GFI compliance mechanism. That was required. But there was a general consensus on the floor with a lot of member countries. Because the idea from where it originated was that the PSC would be able to see the implementation of GFI and thereafter also look at CII, which we opposed, and a lot of member nations opposed, because we did not want PSC dominance on implementation of CII presently, which is there to stay the same way. So going forward, yes, obviously there will be some kind of a synergy developed between the two, but we are opposing it today from a clear standpoint that we do not want PSC interpretation of CII also to be taken on board as of today in the present framework. So that's the reason. We'll definitely.
To invite Shi and Mr. B. Venkat for next session. Short-term measures in IMO, which was completed in MEPC83, probably phase 1. Agreeing on CII reduction factor from 2027 to 2030. What was the outcome of that review?
As all of you know, I mean, who are dealing with this affair, that carbon intensity indicator is how many grams of CO2 is emitted by a ship for every ton-mile of cargo moved. So that is the index. So this particular indicator, it was agreed that this rule, CII rule, came into force in 2023. That from 2023, it will be every year, this figure has to reduce by 2% for a ship. Every year you reduce it. And the agreement was only up to 2026. And it was that time there was no unanimity how much it should be from 27 to 2030. Those 4 years were left blank because there was too much disagreement. The main requirement was whatever CII the world fleet had in 2008 should be reduced by 40% by 2030. And in 2008, the figure was 17 grams of CO2 per ton mile of cargo moved for an average ship. So that has to reduce by 40%. And IMO showed from their data that it has reduced to, by 2023, it has reduced to 11 grams. So there's a substantial reduction from 17 to 11. Because the rules are working. EEDI rule has come in 2013, then EXI is working, and generally smaller ships are being replaced by larger ships. And there is a lot of emphasis on improving energy efficiency. So there's been a tremendous drop. I mean, no other industry has achieved these kind of CO2 drop in intensity. And so when the topic came up about discussion what it should be, so we, India and many other countries said 1.5% every year, no more. We don't need it because we have already achieved 11 grams by 2023. But nevertheless, the small island countries, they were asking for 7%, 9% reduction every year, which is just technically not possible. But they are scared that their sea level is going up, their islands will go underwater. So they wanted higher. Anyway, there was a compromise, and a figure of 2.625% per year was agreed. So the answer is 2.625% every year.
Yeah, I saw that, but it's little worked on. Is there going to be any change in enforcement mechanism with respect to CII? Currently, D 3 years are given.
So, with respect to phase 1 of the review, phase 2 is still pending, which will be completed sometime by 2028. And as of now, considering the gaps and the various shortcomings of the CII frameworks that have been highlighted in various papers, the enforcement mechanism still continues to be soft enforcement. And only once the phase 2 of the review is completed, it would probably be a hard enforcement of CII requirements.
We agreed that to increase accessibility of IMO TCS data, especially for those like ROs and those who are really, for them which is important to access the data, and obviously the flag. And obviously at the other end there is a confidentiality issue. So is there any changes or how both aspects are managed?
So amended, first and foremost, it states that the administration as well as the recognized organizations have access to all the previous year's data for a vessel. Second is, it gives access to an administration to non-anonymized data for all the vessels for their own study. And lastly, it also allows for facilitation of the access to the data to the general public. The exact method that it will be made available is not yet clear. But at some point, the public will have access to the non-anonymized data. So those were the major changes, and of course, as you mentioned, there were some debate about making the anonymized data also available to the general public, because there was a thought that it can be like sort of used in conjunction with data from other sources to actually identify which particular ship data belonged to. So there will be some more measures that we put in to strengthen the anonymity of the data, but that is where we are headed towards.
So in everywhere means there's some other gases we need to consider, like methane and nitrous oxides. Now I'm not sure whether they are included in current the trials, whether it's the trials at the manufacturer's location or otherwise. Is there any changes in Annex 6 or NOx code?
Once in a diesel engine, methane and nitrous oxide is formed. Both these gases are also global warming gases. So today these are not being captured, at least in IMO regulations. In ISO we do calculate these gases, but in IMO it's not being captured. And now these new, not new, LNG is not a new fuel, it's in use for quite some time now. LNG is methane. So when you burn LNG in a diesel engine, much unburned methane goes out through exhaust. Many are lost through crankcase. So it's all over. And so it's just not the combustion, CO2, which is creating global warming, but also slippages which is happening. So now a guideline has been approved. When you are testing the diesel engine, that's for the NOx technical code, this will come as per that. So even these methane and nitrous oxide will be measured, so that you know that how much power, how much greenhouse gases are coming up. And this will be captured in GFI, whatever we discussed in the previous
Lot of adding the meeting CII requirements. End of the day, it does not, the formula itself is based on deadweight or GRT, depending on type of ships. So it's not giving due for the cargo work which is done in true sense. The ships which are in anchorage or short voyages or weather routing or due to other reasons like even geopolitical reasons have to take a different path. Is there any correction factors thought about in MEPC or is it being discussed, and when can we get clear idea?
Okay. There are many challenges with respect to CIA compliance. All those who are active in it will be knowing about it. I mean, long anchorage stay, short voyages, then ships, bulk carriers having crane, and there are bulk carriers without crane, so there is a difference. So exemption, exclusion for the crane, electrical load, etc., all these things are there. So these challenges could not be resolved. Only issue could be resolved was this CII reduction factor, which we discussed, 2.625% every year. And rest of the problems will be dealt with in phase 2, starting from 2026 onwards, and try to resolve it by 2028. Because to resolve those, you need much data. But one thing which has been agreed in this MEPC is that today for the distance traveled, we consider any time the main engine works and the ship moves. That is the distance travel. And it was creating a lot of problems in getting a CII value very correctly. Now it has been decided that to exclude all the port waiting time, short voyages, any consumption in port, we only consider distance travel means full away to standby engine, I mean end of sea passage, beginning of sea passage to end of sea passage. That means the sea passage only will be considered for all CII metrics. This has not been accepted in this MEPC, but eventually we will see this happening so that all these port waiting time and short voyages and ports, other cargo work related, etc., can be excluded. Another, I will take this opportunity to explain. I mean, Mr. Sukumaran mentioned, and Mohit also answered about it. Is there a possibility of merger of some of the matrices? Yes, it is very much there. And in the phase 2 of the review of short-term measure, this will be addressed. That can be synergized is GFI, which is grams of GHG emitted per megajoule of energy used, with CII, which is grams of CO2 emitted per ton mile of cargo moved, can be merged. Most probably it will happen. And the CII as it stands today probably will not exist after 2030. So that is the way that things will probably work out. Anything you want to add?
So much of these correction factors we're dealing with what can be referred to as non-transport work, whether it's cargo heating or cargo discharge or maneuvering or that kind of one, where the consumptions are higher but there's no effective distance being made. So that was the reason for capturing the distances and consumptions from start of sea passage to end of sea passage, because there was a study done by RINA based on which they said that a vessel CII, if that is the metric that is used for evaluating a vessel's efficiency or performance, they said that is remaining almost consistent across different vessels and different years. And based on that outcome, that is the proposal that they made. And that was the reason for collecting the data, that the definition of the underway and not underway was changed to explicitly mentioned as from start of sea passage to end of sea passage.
One area which discussed is carbon capture. One part is obviously there is an advantage. There have been papers submitted by China and other countries. How do you, one is where do we stand with carbon capture? The other question is how do you merge carbon capture as a concept with other regulations of IMO? Because it's a slightly different kind of approach. So is there, on both fronts, is there any discussion going on?
Probably carbon capture, I mean, it's very much required because fossil fuel is going to stay here. We can't do without it because it's easily available and it's cheaper. So industry is looking at how to capture the CO2 and then put it underground or whatever it is, reuse it. And that way, so this CO2 which you capture, it will go into GFI calculation eventually when all these fall into place. So that ship will get a benefit, So there is huge potential in this carbon capture, so which has been recognized. That is why this work plan has been put in place, which has to be finished by 2028. That how to make the whole carbon capture system work on the ship, liquefying various, and then what all regulations we need, and how to transfer it to shore establishment, how in shore establishment it will move into sequestering it. Shore establishment is also working, so it is very much there, and it will be captured in GFI calculation eventually.
Thank you, sir, for the interesting aspects and some of things which a lot of us were not aware of. Is there any question anybody would like to ask?
Good evening, my name is David De Silva from Fleet. The distance covered over speed, distance covered over ground, or distance covered by the propeller? Which is the actual distance to be?
It is in logbook figure, whatever you note. GPS.
Logbook figure.
Yeah.
Distances, depending on the slip.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
For now for session 3, I would like to invite Shri Devrup Kabi, Mr. Mahesh, and Mr.
Gopi.
Mr. Gopi. Mr. Mahesh Kurani. Devrup, understand that MEPC 83 ballast water review group discussed about amendment to regulations in existing convention. Can you update on that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sovit. Thank you all, sir. Good afternoon. This is actually what happened in. I just explained you one by one, so all your questions are answered. Operation, maintenance, and safety manual. This is a mandatory requirement by flag administration. In that, what are the discussion on that? They wanted to discuss about the critical spares. Your ballast water system is a mandatory instrument, and you need to have certain minimum. So because the OEM, they were like, they wanted to give a minimum. So the OEM is the best fellow who can specify spares. It cannot be regulated, it cannot be mandated because the techniques are different, the systems are different, and depending on system, the spares will be different. So you just cannot have a mandate. Finally, it was like the OEM has to provide the minimum set of spares when you are approving the OEM manual. Okay, timing is related to modifications. When you are having a modification, you want to update your ballast water management system. Okay, you have to again change the OEM manual or revise the OEM manual. So when you are going to do that, you have an existing manual on board. When you are going to do that, because there are issues like whether it has to be done before the modification, or when the modification is ongoing, or after the modification. So a lot of derivation on that. Then finally it was expected that this is because there are not many modifications happening, and that has to be put in the manual. So it was accepted when the modification is going on, that manual needs to be updated, and finally, when the modification is finished, that time the manual should have been approved by administration. That's what the thing is. Second was definition of major and minor components. There was lot many derivation happened, but it is very difficult to, define what are the major and minor components on a system, because there are so many systems, different systems. So this is under deliberation, and this was put forward to now the next CG, because you have to specify, because depending on that you have to define your major modifications. If there is a modification, a major component, it relates to a major modification, and on major modification there are certain regulations there. So this is also now deferred to the next CG corresponds to. Then coming to BWM testing parameters and test conditions. See, this is where there was deliberation, there was difficulty with OEM and the regulatory bodies, the flag states, also the arrows. Because what's happening, we are actually, problem is we are actually blaming the seafarers. When there is a mishap happening or there is a PWC parameter is always not being compliant, that is okay. And as of now, if you see the certificate, type certificate, there is no mentioning of turbidity value, or there is no range of turbidity value which is defined mandatorily. So whether that turbidity thing to be mandated only deliberation was there. Because OEM was totally reluctant, they say it depends on the technique, it depends on the type of ports the vessel visit. The port may not be requiring that much TSS, so it will be over designed. If you specify 1000, it will be over designed. You don't require exact, and it will be so on that aspect. Flag states RO they never agreed. Okay, they told definitely it has to be mandated. Certain values have to be put. It has to be applied uniformly across with whatever technique, so that the final 100. If it goes beyond 200, you should not penalize the vessel. So that has to be also in place, mandatory. So that is what decided then and there, but it will be again put forward to CG working group. Standardization BW data logs and export files. See, there are data logs and export files, those are specified by the manufacturers. Those are their system data. Here we are not talking of system data, here we are talking of external data which is to be given, which is to be shown or given to the PSCs, the flag states, ROs, we are talking of those data. So those had to be synchronized because you have to get a synchronized data, I mean a uniform data, whoever, because it's not different from PSC to PSC or flag state to flag state. So there has to be a synchronized data. Applicability of guidance on contingency measures. So there has to be clarity on application. So this is also been deliberated there, and this has been put forward to CG. Consequence amendments due to introduction of BW's maintenance log. So on this also not been discussed because maintenance log is one part that will discuss whether it should be part of ballast water record book or you can have an equivalent system in place on board. I don't know what you all prefer because you already be having a ballast water record book. If you can have a provision or a code specifying how to enter your maintenance data, it's very good. But if you suppose you are not having, you are having a, I can give you an example, PMS. So you got a question?
Yeah. I was saying oil record book we are having a code for.
See, ballast water is a system. Okay, now supposing you have a PMS on board also. Somebody, let's say my vessel, I am having a PMS. I incorporate ballast water treatment system PMS in that. Is it acceptable? Should be acceptable. It's not costing me because PMS has to be type of by RO on behalf of administration. So if you can incorporate that in PMS and get it approved, that is as good as you are having a recorded ballast water record. So it could be either way. So there is a flexibility in that should be deliberated. Like you were saying, all record book. Definitely. That's why we accept maintenance log in ballast water record book also. But for that, a guideline, a code has to be defined for. Yes. Transition from regulation D4 to D4. D4 you must be aware of. This is a leeway given by IMO to test a different design, a different technology on board for 5 years. If you are doing that on board, for 5 years you are not supposed to comply to D2. You will not be penalized. So that period is 5 years. Now suppose that 5-year period is over. Now you have to change over to D2. Mandatorily. So how are you going to do that? When you are going to do that? Okay, already you have a type of BWMs on board and simultaneously you have a prototype on board. So how are you going to take care of that? Whether that D2 again it is to be compliant or not because you have a type prototype going on. So those things are deliberated. So this is again put forward to the correspondence. Group training requirements. There is a lot of derivation because there are two conflicts or two conventions, STCW and ballast water. As it is, it was put in ballast water, the training and this. And training also, there are two things, training and familiarization. So these two are different. So it was finally decided familiarization as it is should happen because it's part of ISN code. It is not with ballast water, it has to be with any equipment which is a stat equipment. That familiarization has to take place with the group with the record for training. So this is accepted, familiarization. But training is a high level thing. So that has to be put aside to STCW. whenever it happens, the amendment happens to S60W, the training has to be there. But as I understand, this will happen in 2028. Before that, the convention will have entered into place. So there is a lacuna in that. So, okay, sir. Now it's
Questions
so
on
that's why I
ballast
just
water.
wanted to cover this.
So next is Gopi sir, what are the action plans on marine plastic litter from ships discussed in IMO?
ESG reduction strategy. Similar strategy is there with the IMO, aligned with the FAO for addressing marine plastic litter. So that was taken up through several MEPCs, and now the action plan has been adopted and agreed to be adopted, and the guidelines are to be framed. So presently the strategy, as per the strategy, we are also having projects, several IMO projects, along with the FAO. The Glow Litter project, India is also a part of it, and with this project, they are trying to address the marine plastic litter globally. So now the Glow Litter has almost got over. The regulator is also going to commence now shortly. So this is the strategy now, as of now. So the action plan which IMO has agreed is that we have to create adequate awareness, general awareness among the seafarers. The amount of plastic litter that is generated not only from the fishing vessels must be reduced, but also from the merchant shipping. It's also there. And the effectiveness of the PRF, existing PRF and additional PRF, that also to be improved. Further, there is a need of international cooperation in this area. So these are the terms which will be taken up and the guidelines will be framed. This will also take into account the plastic pellets, containerized plastic pellets, which have been an issue for quite a long time, which is creating pollution. And we have witnessed that type of pollution near Sri Lanka also recently. So all these things will be addressed through the action plan.
Thank you, sir. What are the main strategic steps taken in MEPC 83 to progress underwater?
To MEPC 83, the strategic step, I think I should go back a little to this SDC 10, the subcommittee on ship design and construction. They had proposed 3 draft amendments to the revised guidelines which came into 2023. The first one was related to URN management plan, where the reference chart was created. The second one was the draft action plan, which states about how to implement this reference chart and management plan. And third one was related to the 3 years experience building phase. So now I think I'll come back to the question. So and these 3 draft amendments, they were approved in MEPC 82, which has happened last year, and now in 83. The experience building phase was discussed by all the member states, and they agreed that this experience building phase will still continue, should continue for next couple of years. So I guess this was the strategic step taken by the the member states of the IMO in the MEPC 83. So when we talk about this experience building phase, so this phase is why they have come with this experience building phase. The IMO wanted the guidelines which are available, which are not mandatory, they are voluntary basis. So what they want, they proposed to the member state that they should incorporate these guidelines for into their their own regulations, or they should encourage to their stakeholders like shipbuilders, designers, classroom societies, and whatever lesson learned or the best practices they come across, they should share with the IMO. So this is the basic principle of this experience building phase, and it should be continued with the strategic step taken by the MEPC 83.
What role does IMO Glow Noise Partnership project play in URN management?
IMO Glow Noise Partnership. Sir, basically this IMO Glow Noise project was launched by IMO in collaboration with GEF, Global Environment Facility, and UNDP, United Nations Development Program. It was launched to raise the awareness, to build the capacity building among the developing countries. Like India has participated as a leading participant country in this Glow Noise project. along with the other countries, developing countries like Chile, Argentina, and South Africa. That total 10 countries are there. So the first thing, if you speak in the context of the India, so what we will get, we'll come to know what are the adverse impact of this URN on in our ecosystem. And when we talk about the ecosystem, it's about the marine ecosystem, it's about the marine mammals or fishes, and at the same time the fishing communities whose livelihood is dependent on these fishes or marine mammals. So both are going to impact it. So that is the thing. And second thing is related to the IMO context. So these developing countries, the IMO in the Global Partnership Project, all these developing countries will be coming together. They already come together. They will be discussing. They will be sharing the information and technology, and that after that they will have what are the lesson learned and best practices they come across. They will be reporting to the IMO. So this is the basic idea behind this project actually.
Obviously, in any engine, there is a compromise between SFOC and NOx being generated. So, in ideal world, an engine manufacturer where the NOx tire does not prohibit would like to have a mode in which engine can run with lowest SFOC. And modern engines have those facilities where these switchover can happen. So, at one end, we have to ensure the carbon emission can reduce. Other end, we have to ensure tier 2 or 3 or whatever applicable is met. Is there any guidance or any new thing which has come up in IMO from this point of view?
MEOP, Marine Engine Operational Profile. So you can have, like you explained, you can have many profiles. That's called MEOPs. You can shift to any profile. You can shift from tier 1 to tier 2, tier 2 to tier 3. You can switch back to tier 2 also. You can change the profile because see MEOP, okay, it's related to NOx because you have to, at any point of time, you have to comply with the NOx requirement. So for that, the guideline is in place right now, and it's been approved at this MEPC. So you can have multi-engine profile as of now. Basically, this is an electronic engine, authorized difficult mechanical engine, how to change the profile. And basically, change of profile means, MEOP means what? Change of setting, engine settings. You can have your injection settings or injector timing. You can change the timing also. You can change the location of valves or the timing of valves, all sort of valves, exhaust valve, unit valves, intake valves. So when this was designed, okay, there are so many things actually happening. You know, when you have one profile, when changing to other profile, two profile or three profile, number 3 profile, you have to maintain the NOx rating. Okay, how are you going to do that? So there are nomenclature, some is called ACD. ACD means what? Auxiliary control device. Auxiliary control device, there is a definition we find in code now. Okay, with this guideline also we find this. They call it ACD. ACD is an equipment or instrument when you have, there is a chance of NOx not being compliant. On a NOx compliant or certified engine, like starting off, low speed, switching off engine, that time NOx may not be compliant. So you have putting additional equipment for compliance. Okay, I can give one example. Tier 1 to tier 2, you are switching over. Okay, the switching over, how you are switching over, that's ACD. Okay, and whatever systems, like you can have many other SCDs, but these SCDs have to be part of your NOx technical file. So this has to be approved when you are approving your NOx technical file. So part of that. Anything which is changing the NOx affecting critical components. Okay, so that has to be part of your NOx technical file. And for that, any SCDs to be part of, these are latest form, this come about. So a NOx technical file should consist of SCDs, approved SCDs. Another is rational emission criteria. Rational means whatever you do, you have to comply with the requirements. So it has to be rational. It cannot be irrational strategy. The strategy has to be rational strategy. What strategy you come for? So that is it. And we are talking of MEOP. Yeah. Anything else?
The next question is not related. Lot of that happening to engines.
So this is another thing which is coming in, as well as the guideline also. The SCR guideline. I am relative SCR also now.
Sure. That was my next question, either way.
Achha, that's the next question. So I'll just speak on that also. So NOx technically amended with respect to major modification. There are two terms. One is major modification and another is one more is there. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So major modification, sir. So when you are having a major modification, what is a major modification definition through Marpol or technical code? There is a definition on that. Okay, that means if you are changing your engine, which is a different engine, make and model are different, the ratings are different, the power, the RPMs are different. Okay, so there is a definition for major modification in Marpol. Okay, so you are doing a major modification, then what you need to have? You need to have a NOx assessment. Okay, NOx assessment for major modification in an existing shape. So that guideline has come in now. So if you are having a major modification as defined by the Marpol or technical code, you have a NOx assessment again. So that guideline has come in place. Okay. So there is a chapter on that. Chapter 8.
Thank you. I think a lot of issues probably we need to discuss.
ASEAN also I will touch upon here. ASEAN, there is a revision on this particulate matter. Or when you are doing NOx, they claim, even with the EGCS also, so we are controlling SOx and NOx, but what about particulate matter? Particulate matter and black carbon. So this has been mandated now. You have to have a standard for PM also. So when you are doing an approval for EGCS and ASEAN, we should be having a particulate matter testing also. Thank you.
Thank you. Next session as well.
Sir, what is happening, sir?
Active substance. See, one this is an item. Okay, DBP. You heard of that DBP? So this is a offshoot of this is see, we have been having a ballast water business criteria. So we have defined certain what are the criteria has. So we have defined certain chemical parameters and stuff like pH value, all those. Okay, but again now DBP has come. Okay, I will tell you the full form also, but that is an offshoot of the discharge now, which is actually they claim, people claim, environmental scale, they will affecting the human also. It is cancerous.
And Mr. Satish Khan for session 4.
Thanks for the question, sir. So plenty to share as far as HKC is concerned. Because strategically, it is in a better position as far as ship recycling is concerned. We may not be so good in shipbuilding or ship repairs or any other thing. But at least here, ship recycling, we are in a market leader position. So we are only second to Bangladesh. So presently we have the capacity of around 4.5 million LDT capacity we have for ship recycling. 32% of the global ship recycling is being carried out in India. So this is the advantageous position for us. So with HKC coming into force, so we are at present having 115 compliant, HKC compliant yards which are having statement of compliance. So these yards are there. So we are also, India, the adoption of the convention came in 2009. So India acceded this convention in 2019, November 2019, enacted its own domestic act, as well as the rules were framed in 2021. And now there is a committee formed for drafting ship recycling regulations. We have drafted the draft ship recycling regulations. Almost 200 comments were received from the public domain. And now we are in the process of finalizing the draft ship recycling regulations, and hopefully before the entry into the convention, this will be notified. This is the current status now.
Was there any discussion towards ship recycling in MEPC 83?
MEPC 83, actually Norway came up with a paper asking for, the experience building phase
basically because this convention is 2009 convention, and there has been lot of things changed for the past 16 years. So there is a need of updating this conventional requirements. So therefore Norway suggested and proposed a paper in this MEPC. So that is basically asking for a new output and implementation, experience building, and update on the convention. This is the Norway paper, which was supported by BIMCO. One paper was submitted by BIMCO also, supporting this paper of Norway, and we also supported this paper basically. So considering that we are one of the major countries who are interested in HKC coming into force. So this is the thing this has been accepted and agreed to be included in the biennial plan 2026-27 with PPR as a subcommittee to address all these issues, and 4 sessions will be taken up for this.
Yes, sir, there is Basel ban actually, Basel Convention and Hong Kong Convention. And at times, and very soon in June, Hong Kong Convention will come in force. So if there is a conflict between inter-boundary trade and the compliance to HKC, especially when International Ready for Recycling certificate has been issued, which regulation will take precedent, and is there a discussion between IMO and Basel on this regard?
Actually, this has been a discussion going on in the convention, because Basel deals with transboundary movement of waste, and if ship is considered a waste when it goes for scrap, countries which are signatories to both Basel and Hong Kong, there could be circumstances where there could be an interference, and this was recognized, and actually India had also submitted a paper on that. So the present status is that the Secretariat at IMO was tasked to interact with the Secretariat of the Basel Convention. This has gone, the Secretariat at MEPC83 gave an update on the conversation. This has gone on the agenda of Basel Convention Conference of Parties, which is going to happen. Ideally, the position should be Hong Kong Convention, being the more recent convention, should lie on top, and as long as there is Hong Kong Convention compliance, there should be no reference to Basel, but it would require to get that sort of approach from Basel. Once that Conference of Parties takes this up, there is a guideline made for that. So hopefully this interference, which is recognized now between the two conventions, would also get sorted out favorably, hopefully, in Hong Kong Convention.
Entering force shortly, how well do you think India is prepared? Both point of view of legislation. Okay, then HKC is going to be implemented soon. How well we are prepared, both from the point of view of recycling facilities in India, as well as from the legislation? Yes, the draft regulation has come up. So by when the final regulation is expected?
Yeah, as I said earlier, the continuity of the same this thing which I was answering earlier, the draft ship recycling regulations, we received the comments, and now we have decided the competent authority also. So very shortly, today only we have finalized the competent authority, today morning. So very soon you will get the draft ship recycling regulation, not draft, you will get the ship recycling regulations 2025.
Thank you, sir. This is really a good news at this point.
Yeah, thanks. And one more thing is, we are also giving adequate amount of financial assistance for the compliant HKC yachts. You know, the financial assistance is also being provided. The infrastructural upgrade towards the medical facilities, towards the accommodation facilities, and all other facilities which are required as per the HKC is also being supported by FSDF. That is a fund, Ferrous Scrap Development Fund. Through the fund, we are trying to address all the issues raised because of these conventional requirements.
Thank you, sir, for the latest update. I think that completes our all session. The session 5 with session 3 because only one person was there. Before I request Mr. Vikrant Rai for final closure, I think CS sir's car is stuck. There's two cars, MH04, JM 4679 and GJ05R45205. If anybody whose car is these, it would be great if you can, sorry to disturb in this session. And now I will request Vikrant Rai sir to have a closing comments as well as summary.
I think the sessions were good, but I will try to answer somewhere where I found some gap. Net zero framework. This question was put up. We all know India has already been in front of green shipping and green ports prior to acceptance of this. If you see the definition of green fuels or the surplus units generated, the denominator has got the power. Suppose you are using shore power which has got zero emissions. Your GFI will reduce, you will benefit. So India will be trying to sell already we have a MS notice which says that India will, when supplying shore power, will be issuing a carbon certification, GFI certification. It will benefit one. The second benefit India will get, when we compare levy with the net zero framework, initially there is a common feeling that we should not be hurt initially too much. We should know the pathway, we should have the clear pathway inside before we are hurt. Let me tell you one thing very clear. Levy, net zero, no net zero, all transition will have the same cost ultimately. It is when you are hurt. And in the initially this net zero framework will not hurt shipping very much. First thing that is very clear on this. The third thing is so many on carbon levy. A lot of people have not thinking levy, what will happen to levy. We have done that analysis also. A $20 levy may generate more money than a net zero framework, and it will impact much lesser ships which are not complying than now when with the ships which are not complying. So still I will say a benefit goes that levy has not come, and it will not be as such in other sectors that levy has come, and other sectors the levy will get imposed. And lastly, I have already told you, India has already got targets of 5 million metric tons. The Adani chief advisor sitting in Australia he was sitting in London. He was saying that India's will manufacture cheapest green hydrogen in the world. And they are ready to go as far as 10 GFI for a green fuel definition. So this will also, we are expecting that we will be exporting a lot of green ammonia and green methanol. The next benefit. And these are 3-4 benefits I have already told you. The impact assessment we have already done. It is not going to be much. In fact, UNTAD has shown that CPI for India will be negative rather than positive, consumer price index. Now the next question which comes to my mind from the discussion which has left is what GLONOIS has done for India. The two aspects which GLONOIS will do for India, they are preparing a software which will, where you feed the data and you will get the impact of noise in that area. The software is being developed, and we are collating the data, and we will be able to do that analysis. The second aspect of GLONOIS is women empowerment. At they will be training a lot of people from India, and at least 25% to use that software, and at least 25% should be women. So that is the second benefit that project will bring to India. Now the third question which Kabi was answering, this Blast Water Convention. The changes in Blast Water Convention have all happened because in last few years there has been seen a failure of blast water treatment system at various ports around the world. Now there have been a lot of submissions at IMO. Some says seafarers don't know how to operate. Some says there is a lot of turbidity in the sea that sediments in the water which is being taken in. Some people say the designs are not good. They are done at a past time with the past standards which needs to be changed. All this has, some people wanted some port-state action to be taken. All this has led to a guidance note how to do deal when there is a failure of ballast water treatment system. You are well aware. All the issues were collected, which include availability of spares, which include training of seafarers, which included the regular maintenance of the ballast water treatment, above all ballast water management code, the changes. All this have been addressed, a few have been addressed now and few will be addressed going forward. So that is all the crux of it, the third part. The last part about the about the air pollution, what has happened. The air pollution, now when you are talking about GFI, the GFI is well to wake basis. Tank to wake, well to tank you will emit some carbon dioxide, some methane and some NOx, N2O, sorry, nitrous oxide. That will be certified by third party certifier and you will get a well to tank certificate. That's part of the GFI will be taken by RO when he is calculating your annual GFI. But what about tank to wake? Tank to wake, at present you are given only the carbon factor for CO2 based on the molecular structure. How the combustion is, how much is the carbon hydrogen content. Now the procedures have come out that RO will measure for each ship the amount of methane emitted and amount of N2O emitted and certify it. So these procedures are already out. They are the first stage procedure and they are based on NOx technical code. So that is, now RO will certify that, give a value of GFI for tank to wake and collaborate the both and calculate the GFI for well to tank. Now last issue I want to address is the difference between CII and GFI. CII is a short-term measure addressed in chapter 4 of MARPOL. GFI is a mid-term measure to be addressed in chapter 5 of MARPOL. First thing, GFI only accounts for CO2 emission based on the molecular structure of carbon hydrogen ratio, that is a carbon factor. GFI address all the carbon and also GHG, all the other GHG like CH4 and N2O and CO2 based on well to tank. That is the first difference. The second difference is the GFI is based on per megajoule of energy given by fuel. Why it is based on per megajoule of energy? How will you compare the two fuel? If you take any other, if I take per ton, 60 gram per ton of fuel, then ammonia will give 19.9 into 10 to the power 3 megajoule of energy for 1 ton. Hydrogen will give 129. So to compare two fuels, it is taken on per LCV basis. That is the second difference. The third difference I will tell you, if you reduce your GFI, you will reduce your CII, but vice versa is not true. You cannot have a reduction in CII which will result in reduction of GFI. What will be the advantage? As Mr. Mudit said, you will be shelling, if you are not complying with direct compliance, you will be shelling out lesser money because the total carbon emitted by you will be less. That is the only advantage, and that too only in the terms of CO2. And lastly, as CS sir has said, SEAM part 1, SEAM part 2, SEAM part 3 and SEAM part 4. I tell you, SEAM part 1 is for all ships above 400 GT. SEAM part 2 is for fuel consumption for all ships above 5000 GT. SEAM part 3 is for all ships which fall under EEDI bracket. They are above 400, but they should meet the dead weight which falls in the CII bracket, sorry, EXI, EEDI bracket, for EXI to comply. And SEAM part 4 which will come into force is again for all ships above 5000 GT. Lastly, I will say the CII is going to change. If I use biofuel, I can reduce my CII, but that does not mean I am energy efficient. It is only in the formula, biofuel is putting a less carbon factor, I am reducing my CII. But that does not mean I am going to be a energy efficient. So new formula will come, total energy use per nautical miles dead weight or total energy use per hour. So it will be energy based. That is in the phase 2. That's all. And lastly, about the Basel Convention, already instruction has been issued by IMO that if you are party to both Basel and Hong Kong Convention, you should submit a letter to Basel Convention Secretariat that you will be following Hong Kong Convention for ship recycling. If you are party to Hong Kong Convention, you comply with the Hong Kong Convention. If you are party to Basel, you comply with Basel. Meantime, Mr. Rajiv Nayyar has already told you that they will be talking to, IMO will be talking to Conference of Parties at Basel Convention. That's all. Thank you very much.
Now, I would request Mr. Rajiv Nayyar to give memento to Mr. Vikrant Rai. I would request Mr. Sanjeev Mehra to give I would request
Thank you.
I would request
Sir, look here. Look here, sir. Thank you. Sir.
Overwhelmed with gratitude and pride for the collective efforts that made this event a grand success. On behalf of the Institute of Marine Engineers Mumbai branch, I extend my sincere thanks to each one of you. First and foremost, I would like to express our heartfelt appreciation to our guest of honor, Shri Ajit Kumar Sukumaran, Chief Surveyor cum Additional DG DGS. Your presence has not only embellished this event but also provided us with the invaluable insights and knowledge that will undoubtedly benefit us all. The seminar today was enriched by the expertise and the dedication of all the presenters. IMEI is thankful to Shri Vikrant Rai, PO MMD, Kolkata, Shri Rajiv Nayyar, Shri Mudit Mehrotra, Shri Satish Kamath, Shri N. Girish, Shri B. Venkat, Shri Ayan Bose, Shri Devrup Kabi, Shri Gopal Krishna, Shri Mahesh Korade for your contribution to this seminar. IMEI is immensely thankful for your willingness to share your knowledge and experience with us. Our gratitude extends to the Indian Register of Shipping. Your generosity in providing us with this wonderful venue and the high tea has greatly contributed to the success of today's gathering. I am particularly thankful to IMEI Mumbai branch chairman Mr. David Birwadkar for his guidance and support, especially whose support and dedication have been pivotal in making this event a reality. Our technical seminar subcommittee deserves a resounding round of applause. Leadership of Shobhit Kapoor, your efforts behind the scene have been instrumental in orchestrating this seminar flawlessly. I must also extend my thanks to all EC members for their guidance and the encouragement that fuels our commitment to our community and profession. Last but certainly not least, my deepest gratitude goes to Neeta and Yogesh. Your role in organizing, monitoring and making all the logistical arrangements has been nothing short of remarkable. Thank you once again to everyone present here. We look forward to your continued support in our future endeavors. Ladies and gentlemen, high tea is now ready. Please proceed and enjoy the refreshment. Thank you.